Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third Coda on Coda series. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Maria Marquis. I work at customer education here at Coda. So really helping people develop the skills they're going to need to be successful using the tool on a daily basis. And I am joined by my lovely and talented colleague, Charlotte. Charlotte, you want to introduce yourself to the crew today?
Yes, hello. I am a customer champion at Coda. So as one of my teammates put it, it's like a contract, no code app developer. Like that's kind of what my job is, figure out formulas and helping people on intercom. So you might have spoken to me already.
Yeah, if any of you have written into support, I'm sure you've run into Charlotte at some point in time. So Charlotte, when did you start with Coda? How long have you been here? It's been about a year, right?
No, not so much. I think about 7 months at this
point. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. That's what I'll say. It feels like you've been here since the very beginning.
Yeah.
So what this series is all about is it actually came from requests from all of you being like, hey, so what do you guys use at Coda? How do you run your business? And we always answered, well, we use Coda for it. We're really committed to making the time to use our own technology so that we can understand how it works, where it falls apart, and we can make it better and also really better understand your experience. Now, our topic today is about how we handle customer feedback. So how we triage it, how we make sense of it, how we gather it, and this really amazing doc that Charlotte built to help the support team and the company at large really have that customer empathy and that understanding. But I thought it'd be helpful as a little bit of context to kind of understand our journey with customer feedback. So back in the olden days, when I started at Coda, when we were just coming out of stealth and into our private beta, one of the things that we did was we sent out an automated message via intercom that was called Thoughts So Far. Maybe some of you received it. And what it was is it was a, hey, we want to know, like, how's it going? This new thing called Coda exists. You know, what do you think about it? And we were getting just amazing, detailed responses, like essays of just fantastic gold mines of information. And we're like, oh my gosh, all of these messages are so valuable. How can we make sense of them? Like, how do we really be able to manage it and understand how we can plan our roadmap from that perspective? And so we started organizing them using tags and having weekly meetings about it. And now, fast forward to today, where we've got many more people using the tool, many more functionalities that weren't available back in the olden days when I was churning butter at Coda. And now we have Charlotte and her team and her doc. So Charlotte, do you want to just give us a little bit of a perspective about how you and your team think about customer feedback and how you work with it on a daily basis?
Yeah, definitely. So when I came in, my supervisor was, she was doing all of the feedback aggregation. So it was kind of this process of just adding a little note to a conversation, and then she would go manually triage it. And so we also at the time had all hands support. So everybody was involved in this process. You know, you have a little bit of inconsistency with how it's all managed. So she definitely did a great job for her capacity, but bringing more people in now, I was able to refine the feedback process a little bit. So is this the time you want to talk about like what we do when we get a comment?
Yeah, maybe we let's just go ahead and open up the doc, and then we can have that as an example as we start to work with it. Also, just as a little bit of a heads up, if you haven't attended one of our broadcasts like this before, the way that you can get in touch with us is you can go over on the right side of your screen, and there's a chat area. Feel free to use that. But if you have a question, I will ask, please use the Ask a Question button right below Charlotte and my faces. That's going to be a great way to just log it so we don't lose it. Also, if you're not sure, like, oh, I don't know if I have a question, but I'm curious about what other people are asking, you can still look at that and then upvote or downvote questions. So if you have the same question, feel free, upvote it. That makes sure that Charlotte and I can attack those things right head on and be able to help you out. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Charlotte, if you would just do me a favor, let me know when you can see it. So I know that we're all set and ready to rock and roll.
I see it.
All right, fantastic. So this is a scrubbed version of Charlotte's doc. So I don't have customer names and all of that in here because that would be super not cool. So it's a scrubbed version, but this is very much what we use here on a day-to-day basis. So the first thing that we have, and this is something that we recommend for any Coda doc, is to put kind of a how-to introductory section, mostly because you're going to make this amazing, awesome thing, but people aren't sharing your brain. So it's a good way to kind of get what's in your brain down on paper, if you will, so that everybody knows when they're coming in how to use it. And particularly here at Coda, where we are growing quite quickly, making sure that anyone who's new, who wasn't here when this doc was built, can understand where it fits. And we also have a really nice summary going on here as well. So then the other part of how Charlotte kind of built this doc out was really thinking about all the people who are using it, because it's not just the support team, our customer success people, our sales people, our marketing folks. They want to know, like, what's happening in our user base? What are the trends that we're noticing? So there's a lot of different ways that you might want to filter all of the information that's coming in. And that's where all of these top bits come into play. Before we take a look at those, though, I want to take a look at this intercom data section. So Charlotte, do you want to talk us through what's going on here with the data and the tags and all the things that are happening under the hood here?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's taking a second to pop up. Oh, there it is. Yeah,
we'll all get back in the same time and space.
Yeah, absolutely. So this page is actually being pulled in via crosstalk.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly new from another doc, and with that one through intercom, I have a Zap set up through Zapier that's pulling in both the tag and then this note that each of us will add to every conversation. It'll pull that in, and then it pulls it into this doc, so we're able to use it because we do get a lot of customer feedback, and so making sure that we don't hit the max capacity with all of the different sections I have going on here. I get a little bit fast and loose with the formulas, so it can kind of slow down after a little while, because I definitely have pushed this one to its brink, just going nuts with what I want to do with it. Yeah, essentially what I have in here is it pulls in the tag, and then it pulls in the summary, and then there's a URL to view it, so anybody who comes in, like a product manager, can come in and quickly open that. And then I also have broken it out into a few different things that I've specified within the doc. So I map out all of the tags to different teams, so that each team at the end of each week, they'll receive an email that has every summary of every tag they receive. At the moment, that's pretty manageable. I mean, we get quite a bit of feedback, but it's not too much where they can't look through it and at least skim and see what the high level notes are. And then it maps to which feature areas that we have that kind of encompass a lot of tags. And then it also pulls in a lot of information about users. So the session count is how many times they've logged into Coda, and then user state and things like that. So we get a lot of information about where people are at in the process and what kind of questions they need to ask to get going wherever they are.
Yeah, and that really helps us out, where we can start to notice what are the elements of feedback that are really important for people who are just getting started with the product. How can we help that early stage be as efficient and pleasurable as possible? And then how can we make sure that as people start to mature with their product usage, that we can also serve those folks who are kind of further along the learning path? And one thing I'll just reiterate is that all of this is coming from Intercom. So using the Intercom pack, you can bring all of that intelligence about your user base and start to work with it. The other thing that I think is really smart about what Charlotte did here, because of course Charlotte is brilliant, number one, is that by having this cross-doc, it allows her and the team to kind of focus their attention, right? There's one doc that has all the Intercom stuff in it, but we probably don't need all of the years and years of history in the doc that's kind of what we're actively working with. So you can filter by that quarterly phase. So it allows you and the team to really sort of focus on what is most critical and be able to work from there. So if any of you are working with large amounts of data, really thinking about having a repository doc, and then what is the data that you're actively working with, and using crossdoc to be able to sort of truncate that and allow you to focus. Awesome. Cool. So then we also have an area where we've got tags. So what this is this allows Charlotte and her team to have a very specific way of tagging everything. Charlotte was mentioning something at the top around back when we were doing, everybody was supporting things. We would have notes and some sort of tagging, but it wasn't really standardized. So you'd have some people who were saying partner, some people saying partnerships, some people saying partnerships with a capital P, which made it really hard to manually go through everything. So having all of these tags allows Charlotte and the team to have some standardization. Mm-hmm. Charlotte, anything else around kind of the data powering this doc that you think is valuable for folks to know that I missed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything in particular, more just my kind of like philosophy of how I approached creating the tags at all.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, it's interesting because I read a lot of different blog posts about how different companies do it, and I took past experiences. And it's interesting with Coda because we do have so many feature areas that we're working constantly, and so you have to be able to capture those. So it really is like this fine balance between getting the granular details and then having it broad enough where it shows trends. And there's just so much that goes into it. So really finding the right tags to use was sort of a like design thinking process.
Yeah.
I had to try some and then see where things, went awry. Like if you had another category that had a lot of different, like a lot of the same things, and to break that out further. So it took a little while to get the right setup with this, but I think that the tags we have now are really useful and can show a lot of insights, especially with the feature areas, like I said.
Totally. Do you have any advice for anybody else, like sitting down to start to build out their own tags, like anything that you would recommend to either try or avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a couple of things is obviously like loop people in that are stakeholders in it and who might have insights about like what kind of things they want to see. Like if they don't care about this one area of the product, then, eventually they might. So you want to make sure you're capturing that feedback for the future. But if there's something that like really does not matter, then make sure you get a little bit of input. But I think one of my problems getting started with this doc is I was also pretty brand new to the company, and I was learning, which teams were which and how things were structured out. And so I asked for feedback about my feedback process.
Feedback.
Yeah. I asked about it constantly. And I was like so scared to just get going. And then it was at this certain point, it was like, you just have to kind of throw yourself in there and then revise on it, because I think this process is like, there's no way you're going to make it perfect on your first try. You just have to see what the data shows and then kind of revise it from there and make adjustments. And like some of the things that I look for now are if one category has a ton of tags and then other ones are not used at all, making sure you revise kind of as you go.
And one thing I like about what you said is this idea that you have to follow what the data tells you, right? You can make your best guess on what you think will be valuable, but then your customers will inevitably surprise you with how they either frame questions or what they're concerned about, and being able to respond in kind really, really helps in that regard, which I think is super cool.
Right.
That's actually a really good segue over to this request tags section. So one of the things that Charlotte is getting at is, you can do your best guess, but then of course there's going to be things you miss inevitably, but you want to still just get started. So this request tag area is a place where anybody in the company can come in and be like, hey, you know what? There's a tag that I think would be really valuable, so that they're able to flag, not only what the data is telling them, but also this would be really valuable for me because I'm trying to take a closer look at whatever it might be. And then there's a little section down here, which is the tag requests, where Charlotte and her team can triage and decide, yes, does this make sense, or no, it does not. So Charlotte, do you want to share anything else about kind of why you decided to include this, or how you and the team then use it on a daily basis, what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I go through it every so often. I have an automation set up that will flag me if someone's added it. So it just sends me an email. Previously, I had it in Slack, and it was like, in my channel, it would go, Charlotte, blah, 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 but it was from me. So it was kind of funny.
You're very good company, though.
Yeah, so I just get flagged, and then I look into it, and either I'll send it back to the person and say, maybe use this one instead, like this is a tag, or I'll add it in.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of parts to it too, because I mean, outside of Coda, we also add it to our like SQL database as well, so we can see other different visualizations. And so there's a lot to this, I guess, this data section. And like I'm trying to make sure that the tags kind of maintain consistency everywhere. And other teams also use tags, like we have a bug tracker where they use it as well. So I want to make sure that they kind of align a little bit. So yeah, it's a process.
A bit of a shameless plug. We are going through the Coda bug tracker next week. So if you want to see what that looks like, definitely take a look. One other thing that I want to just highlight about what Charlotte said is that this allows her and the team to say, hey, maybe you want to use this tag instead. So it almost acts as a bit of an internal education factor as well. That, oh, it turns out people aren't aware that this tag exists. Maybe we want to rephrase that or highlight it or do some education on it, which I think is pretty interesting.
Another thing with the tag requests is I do also have a Slack tag added to this doc, so that when I do add a new tag, it sends it out to my entire team saying, hey, we got a new tag. This is what it's for and when to use it.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, the neat thing about this doc is that I think it's bringing in a lot of data, but then it's also doing a lot of pushing out too. So it's like you're using crossdoc and the intercom pack to ingest a lot of information. And then you have the email and the Slack pack that are allowing you to push things out as needed, which is kind of cool that you've got a little bit of that two-way action, which is really neat. So now that we've seen kind of the data that's setting this doc up, that's putting it together, now let's take a look at how the teams can start to use it. So these top 3 sections here, filter by tags, filter by team, and search by string, allow people who are not necessarily on support to better understand the trends that are happening in our user community. So let's go ahead and start with filter by tags. So each of these sections have a very simple setup, which is they are views of that big quarterly data table that we saw with then a control that is filtering them. So here we can see right now, I've got a little drop-down menu right up here that has all of the tags that Charlotte and her team have made. It's a multi-select, so I could say, oh, show me buttons as well, and browsers, and billing, and calendar view, whatever I want to do. And I can now see all of the things that meet that criteria. So how this is set up is if you go to your filter menu, the new thing that we've got here is that you can have a formula right up here that's showing the idea of matching, but you can also decide to add a filter off of an interactive control just by choosing filter and choosing interactive control. But this is a really handy formula to remember, this idea that you want to have things matching that select option that you've got right up here. So a really nice way for anybody on the team to say, oh, I'm just really interested in Gantt charts right now, so I'm going to go ahead and select that from the drop-down menu. You can also just select all to see everything. So this is like a segment of that data that we're seeing, but it's still got all of the same things that we saw before. A summary, it's got the ability to open that link in intercom, as well as the account information. Now, notice that we are hiding 19 columns in this case. So this is allowing us to, again, truncate our view. So, all right, if you just want to see the basic details, we're not going to pull in all of that other information because this is probably used by someone not on the support team. But that information is still there. So if I were to expand this row, I'd see all of that information. In this case, I'm not going to expand the row because for the purposes of today, I've hidden customer information in those columns. So I'm not going to expand it just for privacy reasons. But just knowing that even though you're hiding columns, that data is always still accessible for you.
And there are certain things in too, even when you want to truncate the views, we have something in the hidden sections, which are all the messages. So in case somebody doesn't want to click out to intercom, they can just expand the row and then read, and you can rearrange. So even the columns that are hidden in the view can pop back into the visible columns within the row expansion.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, it's nice.
Right. Just because it's hidden doesn't mean that it's like invisible forever. Yeah. It's really just about helping people focus, but then they can decide how deep into this information do I want to go based on what I'm interested in. Awesome. So the filter by team is pretty much the exact same thing, except instead of choosing to filter off of the tag, we're filtering here off of the ecosystem. And notice that it's got that little formula icon right up there at the top. So it lets us know, great, we've got this as filtered by ecosystem. Because each team has their own sort of things that they're caring about. And if I'm on the ecosystem team, I shouldn't have to see all of the other tags for every other team. I'm trying to focus on us. What do we need to do is we're prioritizing our roadmap, right? So this lets us as a team be able to see just the things that Charlotte and the support folks have decided, hey, this is something you should really take a look at. And we get all of that same information that we needed about the user state, the summary, what area it is. So you can imagine if I was the product manager on the ecosystem team, I could take a look at this and go, all right, it looks like we've got a lot of PAX trends we should really be thinking about. All right, as we're planning for our Q2 OKRs, how do we want to address that? Charlotte, anything around the filtering by team that you think is really important for folks to know as far as how you've seen people use it, or kind of the benefits you were hoping to offer by making this available?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like I will see people poking around in the doc, and I haven't really heard much about what people actually do when they enter into the doc. I think the most people, well, yeah. I mean, I do think some people go in and filter by tags or string, probably not as much by team. But as far as the team views go, the reason I think that nobody uses it that much is because we have a few modes of dispersal for making sure the information gets to them. I already said that we do a weekly email, and then we present the top tags for each team every week at the end of the week. Once a month, we do like a customer story thing. And so we have a bunch of different modes of getting out the information on a team by team basis. And soon I'll be plugging more into the actual like quarterly or semi-quarterly planning cycles to make sure that the information gets to them. So it's a little bit of this like all up data, and I think this is useful if you know what you want to see. But then I think that, you know, there's also that important piece of making sure that you convey it in different ways, just depending on what people need. You know, some PMs might want more kind of like anecdotal or like qualitative information about, you know, what trends we've noticed, because even if you have a lot of data for one thing, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a big problem. And you know, conversely, like you might not have as much for something that is a big deal because there's like a big emotional connection to it or something. And so making sure that you can kind of qualitatively convey the information as well. But that's the great thing about this doc too, is that I have a lot of different kind of templates set up so that I can disperse this information in ways where it kind of aggregates it all together from here.
Yeah. And I just want to reinforce what Charlotte is saying, because I think it is super smart when you're thinking about bringing a Coda doc to a team, right? Not everyone is going to be like ready to jump in, right? Because we've all seen tools come and go. So there's a lot of fatigue that can come with it. And, you know, having people try and remember stuff, it's always challenging. So finding the ways to have your doc be able to meet people where they are through having an email connection or a Slack connection, or using your docs in your key team meetings to share that information can be a great way to really make sure that everyone's getting served in a way that's going to support them, and that you're able to drive that kind of adoption and familiarity, that's the word I'm looking for, in a really natural way. So I always recommend try and figure out where, you know, what are your business processes? Where does communication happen? And then if you have a doc that has information for those folks, just line it up into those different communication channels. You'll find that you'll be much more successful in making sure that you build the doc that's actually right for your team. And you'll really be doing people a favor by helping them make their lives easier. So just a sort of a reinforcement of that brilliant little golden nugget that Charlotte just shared with us. So the other filtering option that we have is searching by string. And this is kind of a cool formula where you can type whatever you want in this field. Like I could type print and then be able to get a filter off of that particular string. So I can see it's just filtered here by everything that has print either in the tag or in the summary, which is really neat. And this formula is a filter formula that's mapping these two areas together. So kind of a neat option there, and we can actually open up that filter. Let's take a look over here. It's an OR formula. So we are filtering by the lower half and then the top half. So some really cool little elements over here, and I'll be happy to share this formula in chat if you prefer to see it there. But there's some really good community articles about search and everything there as well.
Yeah, I think
go ahead, Charlotte.
I stole it from Shashir, I'm pretty sure.
You know, the best formulas are stolen from Shashir. That's what I will always say. Cool. So one thing that I want to make sure we spend a lot of time on is sort of what Charlotte was talking about with making sure that we have emails that are going out to people and we're sending things out. So what Charlotte did is she created this idea of subscriptions. So Charlotte, do you want to chat a little bit about kind of what you mean by subscriptions and how that works?
Yeah, so I have a few different subscription channels. So essentially what people will see going into this doc, just to clarify as well, is everything underneath the folders on the side, the left side, are collapsible. And so those will be usually out of view depending on who's in the doc, because we do have a few people coming in and walking around. So that top section is all you really see ending at subscriptions. And so the goal of it is to make it so that there's just not a ton of information there. You can filter it in different ways. You can request tags, and then you can subscribe. And so that subscribe section is filtered based on the person. So the table is a view filtered to the user. So I see yours, I see mine. And then if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe to the team. So even if you're not part of the, business platform team, you can still subscribe to it there. You can subscribe to multiple, you can subscribe to multiple tags. And then once you're opted into those subscriptions, then you'll receive a weekly email. So the first weekly email is by team. And so you get all of the feedback associated with that team each week. And it's broken up by feature area and then by the tag itself. And then yes, right there. And then the second part is you can subscribe to the individual tags, and it will just give a little bulleted list breakdown, like Gantt, all the things related to Gantt, blah, blah, blah. And so it'll look like that. And so I use that. I got that from my teammate, John, the format, which I love using now because that format formula is really fun, since you can just write kind of your template. And then that one is where you plug in the first item of information, but you can kind of number down. So that's one that I like to use pretty often for emails and other templates.
And I will say, as someone who receives these emails, it's so valuable to just get, because, when you pop into a table, sometimes it's just like you get a little brain melting, like, oh, what am I even looking at? There's so much stuff here. How do I make sense of it? And the way that Charlotte and the team have formatted this is that it allows me to see, oh, here's all the stuff that I'm interested in. Here's all the things that the team should know about. And it's a way for you to structure that more detailed data in a way that's much more usable by folks who aren't in that data on a day-to-day basis. And the other thing I think that's really smart is that we've got the subscriptions that allow people to decide for themselves, what do they care about, right? Am I a little nosy person and I want to see everything that's going on? Or do I want to just see my stuff and, hey, right now I'm just really interested in Gantt requests. Like, that's the thing that I want to focus on, and that's my connection. So it allows the team to really decide what their level of tolerance is based on their own personal preferences, which means it's more likely to be sticky because we're not getting in your way, right? The last thing that I just want to highlight here is that there is a folder for meeting notes. So Charlotte and her team could just click on new and section and add notes from any of their stand-ups, or notes about, maybe they've chatted with some PMs about tagging that they'd like to add. So it allows you to have that more unstructured information in line with all the structured detail too. Charlotte, anything else that I'm missing about this doc, or things that you think will be really valuable for folks to know about?
Yeah, are we wrapping up? Because I have a couple of random notes I can.
Yeah, go ahead. We're here until the end of the hour, so we've got plenty of time. But I just want to make sure that there's nothing that I'm missing as far as what we've gone through here.
Okay. I don't think so. Okay. I think one thing I wanted to touch on was, well, actually, no, I'll just go through this stuff. So one thing I wanted to touch on was the thing that I love about Coda is that you're not you can kind of pigeonhole yourself into one iteration of things, where you just get stuck in like your current schema, and it takes a lot to rework it. But for the most part, you can really break out of it if you do get stuck. And I think one thing that I have noticed building this doc is that I have hit the capacity with different things, whether it was, there was a change with Intercom where they stopped surfacing one thing that I really needed for this. And so I had to quickly pivot and figure out another way to do it. And it took work, but it didn't take that long. So it's really cool to be able to look back on it and say, like, yeah, I had a little snag with this thing, but I found a way to kind of, switch paths really quickly because the product allows you to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that was also, like, building this doc generally was a really great learning opportunity for me on how to learn specific features. So I think if you have this one area for work or your personal life that you want to, you really are invested in it, and you really need to create like a comprehensive tool, it's such a great way to learn the product, where you're it would be really cool if we had this thing in here. Now I just have to figure out how to do it. And we have the community too, and obviously our support team's here to help. But a lot of the stuff that I do in this job, but also in this doc, I will go to the community and say, like, I want to do this thing, and then I'll find an answer where someone inevitably has tried it. And so it's really cool to have this like powerful user base where you can pull information from.
And I would just reinforce, like, dream big, right? Like,
Mhm.
go ahead. What would your ideal solution look like? What does this thing do for you? And then, that's why Charlotte and her team and all of us here at Coda exist, is so that we can help you figure out how to make that dream happen. So I encourage you to just think big, push the boundaries of what you think a doc can do. Really, like, what would your ideal flow look like? Let us know, and then we'll be able to help you really get to the bottom of it. And also, I will say, the best way to learn Coda is by just starting to build something. It may not be like the doc that you stick with for the rest of your life, or that's like the core element, but just like find something that you want to play around with, because learning by doing in Coda in particular is really the best option. And actually, on the community, under our welcome section, and let me actually just grab this for you, we have what we call starter exercises, which are different little doc exercises that allow you to do that learning by doing, but you don't have to think of the idea yourself. We've already helped you out there. So I'm just going to grab that link, and I'm going to pop it into chat for you. You should see it in just a moment. Awesome. Well, please let us know if you have any questions, everybody, by going to that Ask a Question option. We'll be happy to answer anything that's on your mind. But Charlotte, anything else that you think is valuable for folks to know about this, or how the team works, or something that you've seen recently in Coda that you thought was particularly interesting?
I mean, I guess like the last thing is pretty obvious, but I think as far as customer feedback is concerned, the one thing I want to reiterate is it's never annoying when you give feedback.
Not at all.
Like, reach out to us. I think a lot of people will reach out and be like, oh, sorry, I'm bugging you so much. And it's like, no, you're bugging us because we need more documentation. We need to change the product. So it's always good to hear if people struggle with anything. And just wanting to reiterate too that the feedback that we do here is not unused. We are paying attention to it. I am personally reviewing all of it. So it's just really useful to hear from users on where they want to go. And we're really we make rapid changes to the product, and we do it to kind of, stretch the growth and see what people do. So making sure that we get the feedback is really valuable for us.
Yeah. Please bug us. It's not bugging at all. We want to, we're curious. And I will say the other thing is, it's not just me and Charlotte and the support folks who are really interested. Like, our CEO, Shashir, loves to look at all this, and takes a lot of time to engage with it. Our product managers
often.
All the time. So it gets to the ears at the top, if you will. So please let us know. And the only way that we can get better is by you letting us know what's working and what's not. So definitely keep it up. Awesome. Well, last call. Any other questions that we can help with today? Let us know. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, for giving us your most valuable resource, which is your time. We really appreciate that. And it's always a pleasure and a privilege when we get to spend time with all of you. So please let us know if there's anything else we can do to help. Charlotte and I will do an interpretive dance for about a minute if there's anything else that you need. Otherwise, enjoy your week, and we'll see you in the next session. Cool. So Charlotte, what's your favorite Coda doc that you've seen recently? Anything cool?
Oh man. I mean, I feel like a
tough question.
Well, first of all, most of the docs I see are customer docs, and I don't really want to divulge private secrets. I actually, and this is a shameless plug because it is literally the only other doc that I have open right now, but I just made a training doc for tagging for my team. And I stole the structure from Glenn, who is a product manager here. I stole it from his emoji quiz doc. So it's like a fun little training, but it's fun to look up different quiz structures in the template gallery and see what people do.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, we've vamped for about a minute. It looks like we have no more questions coming through. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. Explore, start building, start breaking things. Let us know how we can help. And we are here to help your doc dreams come true. All right, everyone. We'll see you later.